Our goals for this 250 days is to breach the surface of the asteroid and harness the power of the sun, along with building a huge industrial district, utilizing a new source of water of the polluted kind, tapping even more sources of oil production because you can never have enough, and so much more. The current state of the colony is very stable, with all our basic needs being met. For food, we have 4 hatch stables to supply the colony with meat. For oxygen, we have an amazing system producing and distributing the oxygen throughout the entire colony. Morale is positive due to the good decor throughout the base. Lastly, power is automated and fairly stable, with the addition of natural gas and coal generators in the previous 250 days. Now that we're all caught up, I have an Olympic-sized pool of crude oil and so much more to do. So let's get to it. Of course, we start our journey on day 508 because I got carried away in the last 250 days with my exploration of the entire map to uncover all of its secrets. The first secret I exploited was the cold biomes by establishing ladders and platforms in all of them to have easy access to all of the sleet wheat for food in the form of frost buns. So how many more ice biomes did I set up? Well, here's number 1 right at the surface of the moon, number 2 right next to natural gas generators, the small third one right on the side of the world, and you may be thinking, okay, simmer down, that's enough sleet wheat. Well, I raised the ice biomes 4 and 5 right above the oil biome as well. Now we're done with the ice biomes. Is what I would say if there wasn't one last minor one I found with so much free food, and another neural facilitator, which I offered Lindsay as a sacrifice to. Lindsay's been with us since the beginning. She's one of the OG 3, so let's give it a shot. And it is complete. What trait did we get? Minus 20% stress per cycle. Considering she is an excavator, that is crazy good because they are some of the more depressed people in our colony. With Lindsay now a beamy ray of sunshine, we spent the next 2 cycles establishing our pathways in the giga chat of all ice biomes to harness the supply of sleet wheat to bring our ice crusade to a close. And I think the cold barrier should hold up. I just drilled through this small 2-wide hole, and it's a fairly temperate biome that is connecting to it compared to a hot, steamy one like this. And besides, if it's insulated on all the sides and it's just outputting through one hole, the cold should win easily. And through our conquering efforts, our calorie count looks extremely healthy. The same could not be said for the shovel that randomly appeared in our base, which Hassan adopted for some reason. So I set my sights on breaching the surface of the asteroid to get some food for him. We were faced with the options of going to the surface on the right side of our base by tearing through the floor of a fancy lobby with a chandelier and elevator, or using the left side of the base that had literally nothing in the way. Yeah, we used a wide open side. We'll be tearing out the lobby later. I want to make a fairly big area for my dupes to operate in. First few dupes are on the case, Stinky and Camille. So my idea is to have our insulating layer on the outside, and we can lace a bunker layer across the top. It takes a lot of steel, but if this area gets breached, our oxygen and all the good gases just get yeeted to space, which generally isn't a good thing. And it claims that's a vacuum. Hold up, did we already mess up? Oh, I think this is yeeting all of our gases out. I see the swirls of the hydrogen getting sucked out. Cancel all that jazz. This is actually not good. We have breach space. This is going to be red alert. This is a problem. We have breach space. Our planet is entirely compromised. We can solve this. We can slowly build in our insulation tiles. What are you guys doing chilling down here? We have a crisis on our hand. Apparently there is a massive buildup of whatever this moon material is. Everybody can now actually reach the interior of our base. That would explain why everybody was sitting around. Liam is doing the finishing touches and crisis is averted. Is this a band-aid on our problem? Yes. Do I trust the band-aid? Does not look like heat transfer is happening too fast. So yes. So now it was actually time to build a space access terminal that actually keeps the vacuum of space from consuming our entire world. And it should look more like this, with jetsuit docks to equip the dupes with jetpacks so the surface is easier to traverse. And also, they're just freaking cool to not have everything go to the void of space. There's a mechanized airlock here, and one here. The idea is that this door will not open until this door is closed and vice versa. So only this small pocket of air gets yeeted out. And then I have the same thing down here. And there's a power supply where I am feeding off of the electric wire leading all the way down to my base. Along with needing power, the jetpack suits also need liquid along with gases. So the gases are the oxygen, which I just fed a pipe all the way down to the base, siphoning off the oxygen line, which I have specifically for the Atmos suits, and they're always topped off, so there will always be enough oxygen. Then as for the liquid, that's where we run into a problem. We do not have petroleum, which would not be solved until much later, because this game is an expert at making my grain the size of a goldfish. It's so easy to get sidetracked with other projects, not necessarily more productive projects. For example, in my case, this Pokeshell looked at me the wrong way and seemed like a potential threat to my dupes. So I removed the threat. Also, the shovel I was trying to get food for by going to the surface starved. So now there was no hurry to get the petroleum. So I did it. I was perfectly happy with my crude oil lake. I also had bigger problems to solve, such as automating the airlocks to space so only one door could open at a time to minimize the air loss. This wouldn't be too hard to solve for someone who knew what they were doing, and that was not me. But against all odds, I slapped down some pressure plates, and gates, knock gates, and the good old automation wire. And on attempt 1, it didn't work. But on attempt 2, I made logic simpler, so simple that it also did not work. Attempt 3 though, I added some timers to add a manual delay instead of a signal input from the dupes, which also did not work. At this point, I'd been trying to solve this for an hour and I felt stuck, unable to solve the problem until I got the best idea. Yeah, it's a good idea in theory, but you know what? Heck, automation. These airlocks will work good enough. Besides, there were better things to do, such as exploring the map to uncover more vents, such as the polluted water vent, which could be used as an additional water supply, a chlorine vent for unknown purposes, and a leaky oil fissure, which is clearly useful for providing endless supplies of oil. Only problem is it's extremely hot, which probably won't cause future problems. So I hooked up all the vents with pumps so we could harvest their useful resources and bring them back to the base. Here is the leaky oil fixture. It started pouring out as I was building it, so this is what we have currently, a steel liquid pump, and I'm not sure where I want to pump it yet since this liquid is quite toasty. But our electrical wire is going all the way back to the main bus, and if we follow it down a little bit more, here is our chlorine gas vent researched, and we just need to build the electrical wire and then we can seal it off. Same thing with the polluted water vent down here. With the vents now all hooked up, I discovered the molecular forge, which is used to craft many useful late game items such as supercoolant, which can't freeze at any temperature, insulation, which prevents all heat transfer across it, and thermium, which has a very high melting point, so it's useful in the vacuum of space and places like volcanoes. The thing about these recipes is a lot of them require petroleum, which I currently didn't have. So I spent a lot of cycles designing and perfecting an industrial district just for this purpose. So from there, I spent the next 31 cycles building it with the main section to contain all the machines to produce petroleum, plastic, supercoolant, insulation, thermium, steel, and glass, along with 2 cooling units, one to cool the room and the other to cool the coolant for steel production. And bam, our industrial district is beautiful. So let me break it down for you how it all works. First and most importantly, it was built for producing petroleum. So this oil refinery, it takes crude oil. Now, where do you get crude oil? Well, you may see a lot of crude oil pipes. If we trace this pipeline back, we find ourselves at the leaky oil fissure, which is filling up beautifully with oil, and this should be all that we need. Nah, I'm lying, there's another outlet. Following the pipe all the way back, we go to where our slicksters are at, which are fed by all the good carbon coming in. And they are more than happy in here with our heat generator actually keeping it a balmy 64 degrees in here. So no more of the long-haired ones that only breathe oxygen. And lastly and most importantly, let's follow this line all the way down. Hang with me for a second and bam, at the most beautiful sight in the world, our oil lake. The goal is possibly to use up all of this, but we'll see where it gets. So now, what are we doing with all this crude oil? Well, it goes into the oil refinery and through the output pipe, we follow it down here and you may see these blue storages. These are meant to hold the petroleum the oil refinery makes. Now the outputs. It gets brought back up here and is used in the polymer press to make plastic and in the petroleum generator to make energy as the main thing, and it has a few byproducts. So between these two here, there is of course carbon dioxide made, which is pumped right back into the base. As for the petroleum generator, it also produces carbon dioxide in this menu here and polluted water, just like the natural gas generators. So we're using the same idea of mesh tiles lined across the entire bottom. It falls down, this pump here takes it, pumps it through the pipe, it runs all the way up, weaves through here, and goes through a few filters. This filter takes out the polluted water, which then gets taken all the way back up to our water reservoir, where you may notice we have a slight problem. We are out of water completely. I will get back to that. Let me show you this cool thing first. So polluted water, it will produce that, and the carbon dioxide between the two of these will flow down these stairs here and be picked up by the gas pump. Now the gas pump works in the same way. Takes out the bad gases. First it filters out carbon dioxide, chucks it back into the base, then it goes through another filter, which then takes out the oxygen, puts it back into the room. Then it goes through yet another filter where it takes out the natural gas and pumps it up to our natural gas generators. So that is how all the resources are taken out of here. And you may be seeing this molecular forge here and being, ooh, that looks pretty cool. What's in it? There's supercoolant, insulation, viscogel, thermium, and plastium, all of which are only accessible when you do space travel, which we have not done. So I built this for nothing. And moving on to the right side of the mega industrial district, we have a few familiar faces. There is the metal refinery and the glass forge. So now that's just not all here, because there is a mess of pipes going through here, and that's because all these buildings produce a ton of heat, and we control the heat through not one but two cooling loops. So this top cooling loop works the same as the other ones we set up, and this one is to generally cool the entire room, as you see with the yellow radiant pipes. So this should keep the room fairly cool. Now as for the other one, this is specifically for providing cool liquid to the metal refinery and then taking that liquid back out, weaving down through, over, and under to be cooled down. So hopefully it doesn't melt the pipes and spill out everywhere. That is generally the industrial district, and it's mostly set up, but I cut it short here and didn't finish it completely because we ran into a problem. No water, not even enough polluted water is coming through, and between the 2 steam vents, there is not quite enough to keep up with our demands. So that is a problem for 2 reasons. First and foremost, this water goes down and provides oxygen. Oxygen is no longer being produced, which is a problem. It's actually a fairly big problem. The other reason is our crops here need water, and without the water in here, they will die. So the solution for that is actually quite simple. This nifty green guy right here, he is about to starve to death, but he is exactly what we need, because he's not just any puff. He is a squeaky puff. He produces bleach stone, and we can use the bleach stone at our geotuner, where we can produce more liquid from these aqua vents by stimulating them with the bleach stone. So how do we get the bleach stone from this guy? Well, he's starving, and that's because he actually eats good, yummy chlorine gas. And you may be also wondering, where will we get chlorine gas? Well, we have the spill from earlier that was from in our base, which is all stored up here. But also, we did happen, if we follow this vent pipe down and around, keep going, there is chlorine vent that we did just happen to set up. And while we're down here, we have an abundant supply of polluted water that somehow has more germs in it than the drinking water at our base. But we'll figure out how to use that later. So with all that chlorine being pumped in, where can we go do this? Well, that leads me to the base expansion we did. You see a room on the left and a room on the right at the top of our base. We'll be utilizing the room on the right because we have the water lock from earlier, so we can keep all that good chlorine gas inside here. And there happens to be a vent with chlorine gas going to it. We achieved the vacuum of suctioning all the oxygen out by putting a pump in here and a high pressure vent. And you can see there are no germs, there is no oxygen. It is indeed a vacuum. So now with this all vacuumed out, let's get our squeaky puffed, put a critter drop off station in here, and let our dupes take care of the rest. The squeak is wrangled up, looking a little uncomfortable, And it looks like the chlorine from the vent is working its way all the way up to our base, so we should have an essentially infinite supply. The squeaky puff was then added to his stable, and he looked extremely happy with all the chlorine pumping in, so we should have bleach stone in no time. We also accepted a new dupe, being P, with an interesting choice in hair color, but they were very good in the athletics skill. Higher levels of athletics make the dupes move faster, so I set her to a strict supply-only role, so she could move the required resources to machines to free up the more skilled operator dupes to only operate the machines instead of also having to retrieve the material. Now, aside from crazy industrialization, there's also something that's been looming over our heads that I decided to mess with. So you may see here our nifty little hydrogen vent. There's 4 storages and they're all empty. So if we follow the gas vents, you see a little hydrogen in the vents. Where are they going? Well, if we follow it to our cold biome, and you may see that the anti-entropy thermal nullifier is actually running. So we have this switch that can toggle it on and off, and the cooling it's doing doesn't really seem worth the cost of hydrogen. So ultimately it's useless. We have cooling loops to cool stuff. So it's permanently shut down now. And against all odds, our bleach stone solution is actually working. Water has returned to our oxygen generators, and the reservoir is filling up with water as well. With the water crisis now solved, I set my sights on finishing the industrial district. This meant setting up cooling loops. The loop for the room was straightforward. I just filled the lines with polluted water, and it was working beautifully. The more complicated loop was the metal refinery, because the amount it heats liquid outpaces the aqua tuner's cooling rate. So I made an insulated cooling reservoir with 2 pump system. We have 2 pumps set at the bottom, and this one is taking the polluted water, bring it to our aqua tuner to cool it down to as cool as it can, and heads back and gets dropped in here. The other one is powered by a thermosensor, which will keep it turned off until the temperature is -1 degree C. So this pump will not go until it is below -1 degree C. And when it is, the liquid is cool enough, it will be brought up, snaked through all this mess, and input into the refinery to where it is hopefully cold enough. But only time will tell if that is actually the case. Then I modified the glass forges, so instead of the glass cooling off in the ice biome, I sent it to my big pool of polluted water. This way the ice biome was kept cooler and not as devastated. I also had a problem with carbon dioxide backing up since my slicksters weren't eating it fast enough, so I let it vent all the way to the surface to heat it into the vacuum of space. Marie was then accepted to the colony for her crazy high strength, which helped us construct the carbon disposal vent line, so that once it was all constructed, the carbon dioxide was pulling up at the top and slowly being disposed of without hurting the colony. My colony was instead endangered by the water reservoir's heated water from the vents. Since the water level was so low, the water never got cooled down to a safe, usable range by the cooling loop, so the hot, steamy vent water was getting pumped straight into my base and killing the plants I use for food. I added a little layer of insulated tile blocks to block the heat from the hot liquid pipes, and for the solution to the root of the problem, I added a temperature sensor to the pump, sending a liquid to my base, so it only kicked on when the temperature was below 27 degrees. It was currently at 66, so we had a ways to go. A petroleum well was added to the industrial district so the dupes could pump petroleum and use it for crafting recipes, and Amari went streaking through the crude oil lake with no atmosuit. Luckily, he's a freaking unit, so he was only slightly scalding and didn't need any medical attention. But for the other dupes, I turned the atmosuit back on, which apparently I keep turning on and off for some reason. We were still short on water in the reservoir, so I started setting up a desalinator to purify the salt water from a saltwater geyser. The tricky part was weaving the plumbing through my congested network of pipes, but there was barely enough space. Power cables and pipes were also run to the pumps, sending water from the saltwater geyser to the desalinator in my base. All the plans were in place, and of course, every problem in the world happened at the same time. For starters, the oxygen in the colony was severely depleted because of the lack of cool enough water in the water reservoir. Also, the carbon dioxide pipes were blocked again because the project Yeet Everything to Space was set 1 block below where the vacuum tiles in space are located, so the compartment was instead overpressurized. I also disabled the atmosuit ports again because with no oxygen, they couldn't be used to construct the desalinator network. This of course caused a Groundhog Day incident in the crude oil fields. Amari was certainly a unit, but he got overheated and passed out and took a nap in the bottom of the crude oil lake. Our brand new dupe Marie decided to follow suit by starting to overheat. Ren trapped himself on the water in an atmosuit with no air, which was surprisingly easy to fix. And then Marie also passed out at the bottom of the crude oil lake. Luckily, we only had these 6 problems going on, so we could attempt to solve Amari and Marie's problem. I sent Hassan, one of the OG dupes, to save Marie, and once he got there, took a look at the situation and noped out. All the dupes neglected to help, so I had to sit by and watch as Amari ran out of time. This is the Phoenix Project though, where nobody actually dies, so we magically got back to a state where the dupes were all still alive and only partially endangered. This time I saved Ren with ease, re-enabled the atmosuit ports and built every triage cot in preparation. Amari went down as planned, quickly followed by Marie. This time I tried telling the dupes to go back to the colony and put on atmosuits to retrieve them, but that was too slow and Amari perished again. We of course rolled the dice again, and like an insane person, did the exact same thing expecting a different result. Ren dug one tile and was saved. Every other dupe flooded the crude oil biome. This time Amari was smart and stayed away, but Marie did not learn her lesson, so we move on to attempt 4. This time Marie was also smart, but I felt guilty for manipulating the dupe's fate from the original timeline, so I forced Marie to get overheated again, this time passed out at the border of hell. Amari was successfully saved this time and recovering in the hospital. Marie was more complicated. Nobody was helping her again until I deprioritized building the desalinator piping network and had her as the highest priority. Nobody still came to help, so she perished again. So finally, on attempt 5, I queued it up, this time using all the skills we learned. I instantly deprioritized all the construction tasks, and instantly the crisis was solved. Oh, it worked this time. Travaldo's saving the day. Let's go. Okay, Devin is fat chilling, sleeping there. Oh my, her health is stupid low. So note to self, do not ever turn off atmosuits, because although our crude oil lake is amazing and cool, it is quite deadly. Marie was on the route to recovery, but really slow. So slow that it was a concern of her suffocating when she went to get food from the kitchen. This was an issue because the entire bottom half of the base was carbon dioxide. To solve the oxygen problem, I added diffusers to use algae for oxygen production and toggled the thermosensor in the reservoir off. It was better to use the hot water for oxygen production than to keep trying to cool it and have the entire base suffocate. The vents filled with oxygen, restoring hope to the colony. Marie kept doing her death-defying snack runs, and eventually the oxygen levels looked not concerning. Marie also started moving faster and even cheerfully chatting with the other dupes. A couple cycles later, the entire saltwater purification system was up and running, helping with the water shortage problem. There were a few kinks I ironed out, such as the desalinator overheating, so I made a new one of steel in the slickster room to utilize the heat to maintain the health of the slicksters. The final issue to solve was unclogging the carbon dioxide lines, which was as simple as turning off the insulated tile roof. With the compartment now exposed to the vacuum of space, all the gases got sucked out, letting the CO2 lines freely flow, so the bottom of the base could now be cleaned of all the carbon dioxide. With all the crises now averted, we were able to finish setting up the industrial district and watch the petroleum flow on out. The plastic is pumping, the generator is flowing. This is what we like to see, and the temperature is, I think it's staying good. Now you may be wondering, you see a few petroleum going off into the distance. Well, if we follow it all the way up here, it's for our suits. First few are coming in, and now we're just missing the suits. To ensure we never ran out of petroleum for the jet suits, I installed a huge storage unit, and if we ever run out, I have bigger concerns. From there, I set my sights on purifying this germ-infested polluted water so I could send it to the central water reservoir to make oxygen and grow plants. That was easier said than done because it had germs in it, which makes my dupe sick. To kill the germs, I had 2 ideas. For the first idea, we are going to pump out the liquid, go into the cold biome, and put it in a little trough at the bottom and have it sit there until it is crazy cold, and then a sensor goes off to where opens this flow again and starts pumping it back to the base. That's the theory. For the second idea, I was going to try to use the chlorine gas to clean it, In theory, both ways should work, but it was me freeballing the automation logic, so the chances of success were low. What I did do right was accept Nail to the colony. For what reason, you may ask? Well, I'll let Pasnahan explain. This is against my better judgment, but I think I'm going to accept Nails. He doesn't know what he's doing. There is not a single thought in his mind, and I honestly love that about him. He was also able to carry objects to locations, so he would be another supplier and a morale boost for me. Back to the water purification, I got the cold water system to work, but it was incredibly slow. As for the chlorine system, it didn't work at all, so I tried to come to terms with feeding my dupes extremely dirty water as I ran the piping to connect it to the water reservoir. I mean, how will they even know? It hasn't hurt them so far. Am I a bad person for even contemplating this? Nah, they know what they signed up for when they came here. They wanted to be astronauts, and I was like, hey, come to my little asteroid and I'll give you food, possibly, oxygen, maybe not included, but I'll do my best. But nothing was said about the water, and I've been spoiling them with all this water. The main selling point for me was the fact that the water supply in my base was already infested with bacteria, because I have the bathroom connected directly to the water supply without any decontamination efforts. So I promptly tore down the decontamination units and let the water flow, hoping no issues arose. With the poo water successfully hooked up to our drinking supply, I'd say we're ready to set off on our next project. That next problem is not far behind at all, because as you see, our shine bug population is extremely small at 2. I traced it back to this being the problem. There are apparently 7 critters, even though there are only visibly 2. And the reason why only having 2 in here is a problem is because there are not many providing us power. So we need more in here that are kept happy and groomed at the grooming station so that they make more eggs to power our base. So why is it saying there's 7 instead of 2? I do not see any eggs on the bottom. Wait a second. I think this is an easy fix. Yep, it was that easy. Just have it not count eggs. But where are the eggs is the real question. Those unaccounted for eggs won't be found until much later, when they caused a huge problem. But in the meantime, I think it's time for another base expansion. Base expansion complete with these 3 additional stables. So for the top right, I'm going to relocate my regular puffs here because currently they are unable to eat the oxygen because they only eat polluted oxygen. So with one massive moving session, we have our 2 puff stables. On our lower one, there is the puff princes currently, since our squeaky ones are gone. To show you how it works, I will turn this on to accept bleach stone. The sweepers are doing the sweeping from the bleach stone that puffed drop, shoving into the conveyor loader where they're pumped down the conveyor line to our research area because the geotuner uses it to tune the vents. That is mainly where I'll need it, so there's some storage here to hold the excess. The puffs work in a similar way to where the polluted water puts polluted oxygen into the air, they eat it up, and they should spit out some slime. The whole area is covered with sweepers, so anything that they do drop is taken out, and it is airlocked with the water lock here, to where this side is kept pure oxygen for the dupes, and this side is kept polluted oxygen and chlorine. Oh, there it is. A slime was dropped. It's dropped into the conveyor. It gets pumped up. Ooh, there's 20 kilograms and 5 kilograms right there. So 25 kilograms total getting shuttled down to where we keep our sage hatches. And in no time, it should be dropping out. There it drops onto the floor where the sweeper puts it into the feeder, which then drops it for them accordingly and prevents them from starving, like this guy here. Now, the real question, what will I do with the old puffed stable? Well, it's quite simple. Let's see if you can guess as I build it. And I can put in 6 farm tiles here, along with a shear station, so you might know what's going here now. And your last final hint is we are putting down some good old mealwood. Now, what eats mealwood and needs to be shredded with the shearer? Probably the wrong verbiage, but that's essentially what it does. And if you guessed Draclet, you would be right. Because currently, I unintentionally made the Dracos of the non-glossy kind go extinct. So the only survivor is this single egg, and there's actually a second one, which we will also move down there. And the glossy ones are good because they drop plastic when they're sheared, which is really OP. But not good because these regular Dracos are also fairly helpful because they give us the material required to make suits. The reed fiber is what they drop. So I'd like to have a stable all to them and the mealwood should keep him fed and healthy. For the last 2 stables, I have an arbor tree being grown in the lower one using the polluted water from the geyser. This tree will be used to feed the pips, which drop dirt after they eat, which is very useful. We just need to get one out of the printer pod since they don't spawn on my asteroid. As for the top stable, I found some wild pokeshells enjoying their day playing in the water without a care in the world. So of course I kidnapped and relocated them to the final open stable. Here I could feed them slime or polluted dirt for them to produce sand, which is used in sieves to turn polluted water into normal water. With the base now fully functional again, I decided to treat my dupes by caring about their morale for the first time since the creation of the colony. In terms of interior design, our base doesn't have much, as seen by all the red areas. It is my hope to make the entire interior of the base a happy green safe haven for my dupes to detox after a hard day of trying not to die from their own stupidity. That means taking our prestigious Dr. Wren and telling him his 10-year degree to be a doctor was pointless. Instead, he is now the one and only unpaid artist in the colony, expressing his frustration of a lack of food into beautiful pieces of art. That art is, of course, large statues everywhere, even the big chunky one in the basement. P got in on the spirit of decorating and got a snazzy sweater from the printing pod. Once Ren was done with the statues, I put paintings literally everywhere as well. The Draco room? Yeah, they need about 3. Oh, a room full of chlorine gas? Yep, that needs some also. Why not summon the room with polluted oxygen as well? As you can see, when I said everywhere, I meant everywhere. Oh, and there's an achievement to have a duplicate make a masterwork skill painting. While he painted up a storm, I made a storage full of sand and an auto sweeper at the water reservoir so my dupes never had to worry about filling the water sieve ever again. The auto sweeper also picks up the polluted dirt from the water sieve and sends it on a shipping line back to the base, linked with the puffed stable to deposit the polluted dirt in the Sage Hatch stable. Since there was an achievement to have an automation system do more deliveries than the dupes, I kept the improvements coming. Starting with leaking the Smooth Hatch stable where they eat raw iron ore and poop out refined iron to the industrial district to be turned into steel. Steel also requires lime and refined carbon, which were made inside my base, so I also ran a shipping line carrying those to the industrial district. With the cooling pool for the metal refinery sufficiently cold and the resources now being automatically brought to it, we could churn out some serious amounts of steel, which we would need for exploring space. The industrial room itself was also staying sufficiently cooled. Ren was fast at work and finished all his paintings around the same time. His most notable works were a mermaid from the Chunky Block, Food, The Screech, The Smooch, Neil deGrasse Tyson, maybe, Behold, a Fork, Unibrow Lad, and you know what he did here. With all this great artwork, the base actually looked extremely happy, with green everywhere aside from the industrial area, but it's pretty in its own way. More automation of course ensued, with a shipping network installed in the Pokeshell stable to send the sand they produced to the water reservoir to clean the polluted water. Then auto sweepers were added to the Glossy Draco and normal Draco stables to collect the phosphorite they produced and send it to the Shine Nymphs as a food source. Next, I set up storages to hold excess amounts of food in each stable, so they would need to be restocked less often, hypothetically making dupes do less supplying tasks. Then I started to transition from 2 atmosuit hubs, with one on each side of my base, to a single massive one at the top of the colony. This way the dupes' pathing would be more streamlined. The first step was hooking up some gas pumps to siphon out all the polluted oxygen, so it wouldn't pollute the air in my base when I connected it. With all the automation, I thought I had enough machines to outpace my dupes at deliveries, but somehow that wasn't the case. So that means even more automation. This time in the kitchen, because sometimes food goes bad and makes a rot pile, so now I have a sweeper to remove the rot pile and send it to a composter to become dirt. While building, I ran across a slight problem of not producing enough power. Question was why? Yeah, our coal's still going, our dupes are still running. Natural gas is a no-go because both of the vents are dormant at the moment, as we can see from the vacuum. Petroleum is running off and on, so I think it's mainly because our natural gas is completely depleted. Oh, and our nymphs are completely gone from the generator. My first attempt at solving our energy crisis was geotuning the natural gas vents, but that didn't work because the vents were dormant and geotuning only makes them produce more when active. On the right side, the pip showed up in the printing pod, so we now have all the animals. We couldn't focus on the pip though because the energy problem was worse than we thought. With power down, the refrigerators weren't on, so our food was going bad faster. So we had to act quickly and effectively to solve the energy crisis temporarily, to keep the colony alive, and long-term to have a permanent solution. First, I set up a huge mining operation at the surface to clear out enough space to place down solar panels. Considering I had 7,000 glass and they only required 200 to construct, we could produce a lot of power. We were very short on metal to construct the electrical wire to the surface, so I pillaged every single ore deposit I could find in the world, even destroying an entire swamp biome. This was the long-term solution, so as a quick fix, I had hamster wheels like we used in the early days, hooked up to a battery to only power the refrigerators. At this point, we had lost 35,000 calories over the course of only one cycle, so it was reassuring to see the refrigerators kick back on a day later with the dupes manually powering. Of course, Meemaw had to pee her pants and get trapped with no oxygen. Luckily, Travado was part of the colony and knew how to get stuff done when needed. In theory, mining out the surface of the asteroid shouldn't have been difficult, but there were some unique challenges and discoveries. Nail, what are you doing? This is not the place to fall asleep. How did you even get trapped up there? Hassan, you're trapped also? This is getting out of hand. How are they even doing this? Regardless, all the solar panels are now constructed, producing an additional 380 watts per solar panel. So with our 6, we have 2,280 extra watts, which does appear to be enough to run our colony. Of course, it wasn't that simple though. Oh no. Yep, there's a meteor. Oh, that is a big meteor coming down. So the question is, how bad is this about to be? Oh, about that bad. Okay, so meteors are fairly deadly. Oh no, and what are they doing out here? Well, you know, I feel like the meteors are just targeting the solar panels, so I'm gonna let the dupes do their own thing. Well, at least it drops a bunch of metal from the meteorites. Oh, and this solar panel actually survived unscathed. The airlock to the surface was not unscathed, with all the jet suit docks overheating because they were made of lead. So I made a batch of new ones made of steel or gold to withstand the heat. With the solar panels now producing enough power, Liam was cooking up a storm and our food supplies were also looking extremely healthy again. And the jet suits finally started being constructed using the steel and petroleum from the industrial district. These suits would be useful in navigating the rest of the asteroid's surface, not like Meemaw or Lindsay were having any problems. Oh, and there's another meteor shower. Meemaw, what are you doing out there? As for Lindsay, she was happily frolicking in the meteor shower. I don't know what's going through her head. After that meteor shower, a lot of free real estate was made for the solar panels, but that would need to wait because protecting the solar panels we had was a bigger priority. This required the use of bunker doors, which were not cheap at 500 steel each. So steel would be a limiting factor to fully protect the solar panels. In the meantime, I constructed our final research station, the virtual planetarium, which I had no idea how to use. Okay, it looks like our first jet suit is docked. Oh, we got 3 of the suits pumped out. So I'm guessing because they're already wearing the Atmos suits, whenever they go up here, they aren't putting it on as a requirement. Oh, block a meter from hitting your base using bunker door. Our 2 bunkers apparently did their thing. We got the achievement for it. Didn't do much to help this though. They came in from the side. And our planetarium's already overheating from the rock covering it. So that's how they overheated so fast. So anyway, while that's getting obliterated up there, I set up an Atmos suit checkpoint for the dupes to take off their Atmos suits so they could instead use the OP jetpacks. This of course did not go as planned as the dupes tried the jetpacks for the first time. Oh, the suit up. Okay, that is sick. Oh my, this is OP. What is going on here? He is sleeping and not sleeping at the same time. I think he's asleep on the ladder. Yeah, he's in the middle sleeping on the ladder. But this is OP. Look at Meemaw go. She is literally mining while in the air. What if I put all these to a dig operation? Is she going to fly all the way to the top? Oh no, they're just bosses just going to levitate because they're cool like that. Oh, makeshift water lock. Oh geez, that is a lot of Atmos suits there. Wait, he has a sunburn? How'd he get a sunburn? Okay, let's deliver suits there and hopefully they'll use them to get back out. So they just need to be told to put on a suit and then they can get back. So in other words, we're gonna need a lot more Atmos suit docks. Oh geez, but these all are going ham out here. And that is a ripping space. That is a place to sleep. Wait, is that their fuel? I hope the red bars are their fuel and not their health. Oh geez, I didn't notice this, but we are at a stupid amount of calories. I imagine that's probably because all of the shovels on the surface have been periodically dying probably. And if you notice, it is in a sterile atmosphere, so it never went away. I think there's nothing I can do to help the sunburn, but I believe it's over in 0.7 cycles. And all it does is just increase the stress by 20 each round, which Ashcan is at 75%, so he isn't quite the happiest. That doesn't matter though, because guess who I found? Our boy Otto from our first attempt. And he's pretty good. He has cooking and strength, but the strength is immediately negated by noodle arms. So he essentially is just a cook, good at machining and medicine. And he does not destroy stuff when he gets stressed. So he is our last dupe of our colony. With that, we got no place like clone. It's kind of funny that in the other colony he was our first, and in this one he's our last, because 20, that is the max capacity I plan to bring it to. Back on progress, we have 5 stations to accept the Atmos suits when they come up here, then 5 suits of the jet suit docks so that they can take off their Atmos suits and then go up here and change out into the jet suits because they are extremely cool and OP, and you can chisel out a huge area like this. So I think our exit to space is now completed. So let's see what this research has for us. Oh, so it'll let us research the next stages. So I'd like to get the petroleum engine, so let's try to rush that, because trying to fuel a rocket with steam just doesn't sound like a good time. And I already planned for the petroleum because I have 30,000 kilograms of petroleum stored in here that were all siphoned up from the industrial district. Turns out we needed databanks to do the research, which meant building a telescope to analyze the planets. Once analyzed, the rocket could then be sent to the planet to do research to get the databanks. This sadly meant steam would have to be used to launch our first few rockets. But on the bright side, Ashcan finally got over his sunburn. Instead of focusing on building a rocket and exploring space, I wanted to fully master the asteroid we lived on. Only when the place we called home was a safe, finely tuned machine would I yeet my dupes blindly into the stars. First, I worked towards protecting the solar panels by adding scanners to detect meteor showers. By having enough scanners, the meteor showers could be detected early enough to send an automated signal to the bunker doors to close in time to protect the solar panels. The bunker doors also needed power to close at their max speed, so I built a transformer to use the light wire since the heavy watt wire couldn't go through the bunker doors. While the other dupes did the building, Rowan had fun at the telescope discovering all the planets. The first one contained refined carbon, coal, and diamonds, so completely useless in terms of planets. I want to pillage for resources. Both the natural gas vents came back online also, so with the addition of solar panels when they weren't destroyed by meteors, we were looking good on power, compared to the massive dip we had in power production when we were forced to innovate with solar panels. Once innovation starts, it can't be stopped, so we built more scanners and more solar panels. We ran out of space, so that meant more digging. I'm not complaining because these jetpacks are awesome and solve all the problems with the dupes getting stuck in strange places. Ron discovered an oily asteroid which had crude oil and petroleum. Needless to say, that oil will be mine. Okay, it looks like we've ran into a problem. These shovels are the problem, because I don't recall this regolith being there, and if I try to do the dig operation, it is not an option. So somehow it got glitched into the solar panel, which is causing its temperature to rise. That heat breaks the solar panel, so I have to deconstruct it to remove the regolith and then reconstruct it. Let's hope this was a fluke or these shovels' days are numbered. Rowan always brings good news and found the metallic asteroid with refined iron and copper. This asteroid will be very useful. I'm glad it is relatively close to us. Oh shoot, incoming object detected, and we are not up at all. So essentially, our system just told us, hey, you're screwed, but we told you, so we did our part. This is going to hurt to watch. We have 2 of our bunker doors which have closed successfully due to our automation system connected to the scanners, but the system only works effectively if it's all covered with bunker doors. Is Neil going to be a freaking legend and construct one more to save us? Oh my lord. He's not going to build it though. All the resources are there. Oh, is Ren going to do the work? The meters are coming, you gotta hurry. Go, 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 go. Oh, he is the legend. He's on the case. Oh shoot, I see. Okay, it's coming down. Okay, there's nothing there. That's good. Ren is still trying to construct. Oh no, that's gonna be hurt. Yep, that's instantly gone. But our bunker door is up. Oh, okay, it missed our scanner. That's good. And our bunker door actually did save us from a meteor. Okay, Ren, you are a freaking legend. And there goes another one down. Our scanning network is at 24%. But our other bunker door is going in. Oh, and that literally just like, hey, bunker door? Nope. Well, at least Lindsay's having a fun time, I think. Cleared all the rubble, the meteors left behind. Oh, and there's already another incoming shower. That meteor shower came to pass, but the moral story is we need a ton more of bunker doors. And the only thing slowing us down is steel production, which was already fully optimized in the industrial district, so I had to busy myself by improving something else while the steel was made. That improvement was trying to decrease travel time mainly because there was a constant annoying notification telling me this was a problem. It was also an inefficiency in my workforce, which has been continually getting worse as I utilize more and more of the asteroid. For starters, I worked on finishing the central atmosuit hub, so all the entries and exits from the base were all at one location, starting with placing all the atmosuit ports. Then followed by branching the vents, so an equal amount of oxygen was sent to every suit, so they were all usable instead of filling one fully at a time. Counting was apparently too hard for me since I accidentally made the right side 2 stations too long. I only need 20 suits for all my dupes, so that meant 10 on each side to maintain symmetry and my sanity. This was promptly resolved, so I was able to remove the old atmosuit hubs on the left and right side of the base, and move all the suits to the new docking stations. The shovels proved to be a nuisance by blocking my access to the surface with their poop, so I made an unescapable prison with no walls levitating in the middle of nowhere, and captured every single last one of them. I gave them a chance to stop pooping everywhere, but that was too much for them. Now they get to live in a very cozy 4-block wide prison. Due to my negligence, I also accidentally locked my dupes in the airlock to space. Aside from the small detail of not being able to breathe, they were alright after I turned the checkpoint off to free them. I also had a slight issue with the amount of oxygen being sent to the atmosuits, but one vent tweak was all it took to solve the problem. Then I'll decide to dress for success and bring a little class to the colony. Plastic ladders go burr everywhere inside of my base. These old ones are slow because apparently plastic is 20% faster running speed, so I imagine that also means climbing speed. So there's all the plastic ladders queued up inside of our base, but I don't really want to do that for everywhere outside of the base. So that's why this is here, the transit tube axis. We just happen to be rolling in a ton of plastic, and that is thanks to our polymer press just going ham constantly for probably the past 200 cycles. So we've built up quite a bit, and with that quite a bit, we can find our nifty transit tube, and first and foremost, I'm going to connect it all the way up on the left side of our base to our space access, and I believe they can exit like this. Worst comes to worst, they get flung out and land into the wall. Plastic ladders are being finished constructed inside of our base. Oh my word, and look at Bert go. Oh my word, they are streaking up those ladders. Okay, that was a great investment. Now we'll see how much this transit tube improves it as well. I am just planning on running it to the location. As for them to get back, they can just slide down the fireman pole, which is fairly fast. Looks like the tube is fully constructed. Are they going to use it though? Okay, this is crazy. It definitely works faster. And he doesn't look like he's having the best time, but that was a sick rollout of it. Since that turned out so good, my other plan is to connect these tubes also to every single one of the cold biomes. So this one right here with the glass gets a tube connecting to it. Random ice biome with a little bit of sleet wheat gets a tube connecting to it. Oh look, another unconnected sleet wheat biome. Bam, tube connection. Now where else could I connect it to? Why not to another cold biome? Okay, would you mind, shovels, not shitting on my solar panels and overheating them? I've already wrangled up a lot of you. Where's this sucker hiding? There he is. He thought he could hide from me. Oh, and there's the other one. He's on the case, and number 2. Now it's just a matter of moving them onto their metal platform. Got him in the sack. Flies up to the platform like a G, and we have another prisoner. Shovel secured and living in the best condition possible. Oh, and there's an achievement for 10,000 meters in a transit tube. Oh, and where were we before we got distracted? Oh yeah, that's right. Bam. Transit tube at the oil fissure. Chlorine vent, another cold biome, and what could have been the water reservoir, but we are completely out of plastic, and that can be solved by adding in another polymer press. So now we have 2 times the pumping capability. Another solution I want to work on is our natural gas. We are completely stored to the max right now, but if we enter another dormant period in 46 cycles, we will quickly go through all that. So I did what any sane person would do, and completely doubled my storage. So we usually had 8, and now we have all 16 of these. So optimistically, that should be enough. While that was happening, I think I finally discovered our nymph problem. You see how they are cramped in here? Tiny guy doesn't care, but the big guy, he says he's cramped. And it is quite simple. If we look inside this conveyor loader, it has 600 grams of nymph eggs. Well, why does it have those eggs in it? At some point, the connection was broken. I don't know when or why, but that was the difference between this working correctly and not working. So now with this connection made here, you can see the eggs have made it to the solar array. How is the polymer press overheating? It was made out of gold, so I rebuilt it out of steel, which solved the overheating problem. The nymph stable, on the other hand, was still functionally flawed, as usual. If we look in the one going to the solar panel, the loader, it currently has a nymph egg in it. So even though I have the automation system telling the loaders to be turned off, that doesn't mean the sweeper won't load it. So to actually solve this problem, yep, you guessed it, ignore it and do something else. The dupes have been currently taking polluted dirt produced by the Pacus, like you see right there. Hassan is picking it up. Then he runs all the way over here and deposit this into the sage hatch. That's where it's meant to go, but that's a task that they're doing that I don't want them to. So we'll set up the automation for it. Having the auto sweeper set up down here, provide complete coverage, set the conveyor loader to accept polluted dirt, then run it down the line of conveyor belts to the sage hatch area. This was done entirely because of the easy living achievement, where our automation system is now doing 76 tasks compared to our dupes 45. To further put the nail in the coffin, I have put auto sweepers in the pip stable. They eat the arbitries, then secrete dirt, and then running it down through all the other stables to the Drecos, to where it's dropped through a chute, and this auto sweeper stores it. So now to actually solve the important problems. How do I make this automation actually work and not jankily? That meant tearing everything out to try a new innovative idea so simple it probably shouldn't work. We have a critter sensor. It counts if there is a number above 6, meaning that there are 7 in the holding area, which is the optimal amount for breeding purposes. That means that we do not need any more inside this holding cell. So it is given the green for the chute to be open to let the eggs out. And there's a not signal going up to the incubator telling it not to send eggs out to be incubated. This affects the shipping system by the sweeper loading the loaders all across the room. And then they go in here, and since there is no exit on the one side, they should make a right and keel down this way, which, as you can see in our example where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in here, all of them are making their way down here. So I believe our system actually works, and all it required was this critter sensor being run to the chute at the incubator and the solar panels. So I think we should be good now. So I thought our fix was working, but it appears, we'll see if this leg goes straight or down. That's what I was afraid of. And it goes all the way up here and it gets backlogged. Instead of trying to fix the automation down here to work better, I have a more jank fix, which required an absurd amount of metal. So I completely decimated an entire swamp biome while also maintaining its natural beauty by aqueducting all the pools of water with extreme engineering precision, making some temporary waterfalls along the way to ultimately make an Olympic-sized pool that the wild Paku could call home. I needed all the metal to lay metric tons of shipping lines, which was cut short because of the automation achievement. For 4 days, my system had beaten the dupes at tasks, but for some reason, at day 5, the dupes somehow won, causing the achievement to reset for another 5 days. I wasn't about to accept the loss, so as a supreme god governing the world, I turned time back to retry the day. I was a little paranoid this time, so right before the day ticked over, I checked the stats, and by all rights, automation should win this time. 53 is usually a bigger number than 28. I say usually because I didn't get the achievement. So in this niche case, 28 is bigger than 53. That's alright though, because I turned back time once more, but this time I laid off my entire workforce and told them to do recreation activities for the entire day. They naturally had a rave lasting the entire day, breaking it down on the dance floor without a care in the world. They all had a fun time, not worrying about dying from natural selection, but eventually they all streamed out of the room for bed, and I tensely waited to see if my plan worked. And it did. We just got one of the harder achievements in auction not included. Upon returning my dupes to their normal schedules, I instead made a 3-shift system, so at all times at least 13 dupes were awake doing tasks while the others were sleeping. This way, if a crisis arose, there was always someone available to solve it. Of course, I gave Rowan the best shift with all the ladies, where he seemed to hit it off with P. Then I finished setting up the ShineNymph automation network, which I think is actually fully fixed this time. So basically the full motion goes, sweepers pick it up, load it, gets shipped up to the incubator, gets dropped out of the chute, gets picked up, loaded into the loader, then it gets dragged all the way down here to be dropped in the solar panel array. The only problem was they were confined in the solar panel room, so they weren't producing light, which I fixed by opening up their glass cell, causing me to accidentally flashbang myself with light. I didn't really want them scattered in the room because it was inefficient, so the solution attempt was adding a slice of water inside the wall so they weren't confined, but also couldn't escape. As for our next project, I did find something interesting. If these guys will move out of the way, right here, a molten larva egg. So you may be wondering, why is that good? This guy eats carbon and gives off petroleum, compared to the regular slickster that eats the same amount of carbon and outputs the same amount of crude oil. So all in all, they are just better in general. Only thing that's a problem is their livable temperature range is 75 to 270. Currently, this room right here that is artificially heated with a space heater, I have it sitting at a decent 65.2 degrees, and that keeps these guys fairly happy. But if we look around the map, the only suitable place for them to live is our leaky oil fixture. It's 245 degrees C inside the container and 100 degrees outside. And that's with the insulation trying to keep it in. I actually like this biome really good because I already have the oil pipe for the crude oil leading back to the industrial district. So if I'm creative, I can just run along this line, jump over here, and then pipe it into the storage. So let's build it right smack dab here. I'm going to use sedentary rocks since it is thermally reactive. Do a little funneling, and then just build the walls upwards. Add in our liquid pump, the electrical work, run the carbon dioxide over to it, run a pipe from the pump all the way back to our industrial district where it weaves through our storage of petroleum and just tacks on right to the end. Place in the stables and a vent for the carbon dioxide right at the head level of the slicksters. Place a crater drop off. So now that the building is constructed, the method to enter is not from the side anymore. It is through the top, through 2 layers of airlock doors powered by a power transformer leeching off of our main line. And the logic I have behind this is carbon dioxide will be coming in, and it should be the most dense gas, so it'll go to the bottom, push all the other ones up, being the chlorine and the polluted oxygen, and that should siphon out these top doors here. So I fully expect this to go awry, so I'm going to put a switch down here so that I can toggle the high pressure off and the low pressure one on, because once it gets to a point where it doesn't have to push that much up and it's just trying to sustain carbon dioxide, I'm good with that equilibrium being reached. And our priority filter off of the main line going to the vacuum of space is actually working, so we can toggle the normie one off and keep this one on. And if we want to do it the other way around, boom, closed, boom, open. Beautifully set up, and I think it'll work. We already see the carbon dioxide sitting on the bottom and the chlorine in the middle, oxygen on the top. I've also set up another automation switch at the airlock doors so that I can just open them and let the gases just flow out or flow in, but more flowing out because it should be higher pressure at the bottom than at the top. The only thing left to do was hatch the molten slickster egg and shove them into their carbon dioxide dense stable. Oh, there's our first bit of petroleum just produced. This is working beautifully. The temperature is 130 degrees in there, so he is a happy little guy. So I'm going to shut the doors. So now we should be stuck with only carbon dioxide in here. And I'm going to turn off the high pressure vent and turn on the low pressure one. So we should get to a normal pressure, and I'll just leave it to this little guy to take care of making more of himself. I lied and the stable is too small, so I made an awkward upside down L expansion, put an Atmos sensor to control the gas levels instead of a manual switch, and now, I promise, the stable is done. The next logical problem to solve was the atrocious interior design, starting with adding a soda machine followed by the canister filler required to get the carbonation to make the soda. Then came the espresso machine and a ridiculously huge gaming station. All these only improved the recreation room, so then I set my sights on making the entire base pretty. This led to me getting my hands on wallpaper, which was a huge mistake. You may be wondering why wallpaper is so bad and how even I can make it a destructive weapon. It improves the decor of the base, which makes the dupes happier. So at face value, it was a good addition. So I put it literally everywhere inside the base. There wasn't a single surface not wallpapered, including the floors and walls. Here's why that's a problem. Oh geez, that's a problem. Oh, that is a big problem. Apparently putting drywall where floors should be means they remove the floors. Who would thought putting walls where floors should be is not a good thing? At least I caught that before they unsettled a lot of it. Oh, if these water tiles literally got overeaten, that would have been awful. Or a killing chamber for the hatches, that is literally our food supply. Since we caught it soon enough, there was just a little patchwork needed instead of an entire new base. While the drywall went up, I also repurposed the old Atmos suit hubs into some living quarters for the dupes. You'll see how pimp they look when they're fully furnished. Of course, I flooded my base again by breaking my Atmos suit hubs airlocks. Looks like we have our first coffee drinker, and it's Camille, and drank it right before bedtime. That makes sense. After several cycles passed, I completed the private bedrooms I started. The special thing about these is they give +3 morale. So what does that encompass? They get 1 and 2 statues along with 2 paintings, a jumping joy cactus, and most importantly, a comfy bed made from nothing else but plastic. So we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 private bedrooms. So who are we putting there? Who do we want to be the happiest? That would have to be our rocket boys. They have the most intensive skills, hurting their morale, so giving them a fancy bed will help. To start off, we have Rowan as one of our rocketeers. He's the leader of the colony, and I can't imagine a more qualified dupe considering how many times he's almost died. Oh, scalding. Rowan, get out of there. You do not want to be in there. Our cook Liam is next and actually has had this skill the entire time. I have no idea how he stayed so happy. May is the third, mainly because she won't have to build much more shipping systems for the base, so she will need a new area of tasks to complete. Our last rocket pilot will be Stinky, just because the idea of a scraggly Irishman piloting a rocket is quite funny. There is one last comfy bed opened by Rowan, so as his wingman I put P right next to him. Colony drama aside, let's actually do something productive, and inside of our regular mess hall, I added this nifty little water cooler, which is considered a recreation. So that makes a regular mess hall into a great mess hall. And that gives us +6 morale compared to +3. To further improve happiness, I swapped out even more old dingy cots with comfy plastic beds. That left a total of only 10 dupes with the old cots, and we'll worry about that some other time. because with this final upgrade, our base decoration journey comes to an end, and it looks extremely green and happy. But you know, I can't just sit around and decorate stuff and make it look pretty. I was also productive during that time. I added a storage for our polluted water coming from our geyser, so that whenever it becomes inactive, we have a little bit of a buffer to keep our water reservoir from drying up and giving us cool water. Oh, next dormancy is in 0 seconds, so we will be getting no more of this good food poisoning rich water for 133 cycles. And I am confident this dinky little storage will not hold up either, but we tried. The right side of the base has the tubes connected up. There's one to the water reservoir, one up to the natural gas storage, which is completely empty, which is actually quite concerning. But anyway, we have a vent to our oxygen vent to a cold biome, vent to the random polluted biome where we have our fish, vent to the cold biome that is super mono, has a lot of sweet wheat we can harvest, and is close to the surface. Then if we follow our path down, there is one connected to the industrial area, so fast travel for the operator. And going down even more, there is the progress I'm working on right now, which should lead to this cold biome and also head up to the saltwater geyser. Following down once more, there is one more cold biome and another cold biome, which is right next to our oil reservoir. So everything in the world is essentially set up and network. So if we go to our total travel time, it should optimistically be lower, and it is not lower at all. So it makes you wonder, what was the purpose of putting all those? Well, honestly, they just look cool. And as I look around the base, seeing all the progress we've made, the only thing left to do to boost morale is if we go to our schedules, I'll give them 2 more sections of downtime, because each additional downtime increases their morale. By how much, I am not quite sure. But if they're happy, then I might get some of their good buffs, such as if we look at Hassan, who has a sore back. If he didn't have a sore back and was happy, he would be a sparkle streaker. So he would start streaking, which apparently is a good thing. Well, if the game says so. For the next 2 cycles, I focused on getting some of the easier achievements, being get a room where I needed to make 1 of every single room, and also reservations where I needed to build 4 reserves, which were conveniently one of the rooms I still needed. The reserves are easy to set up. All I had to do was place a door and check a sign in an area with plants, which didn't even need to be alive. Well, would you look at that? Lindsay has a freaking balloon and has food poisoning. I guess you can't win them all. Rowan and Peeb are definitely becoming more than friends, and apparently my soda machine is laced with something because Travado is in a different state of being when he drinks it. There is no thought behind those eyes. In no time I got the some reservations achievement. As for the get a room achievement, all I had left to do was deconstruct this old cot to make a standard barracks into a luxury barracks. And the last thing I did was set up power generator rooms to work towards the finely tuned machine achievement, where my dupes needed to do 100 tuning errands. So this consisted of a small room with a tuner and a useless wood burner to use up my excess supply of wood. With that, day 750 has passed, so now we only have 250 more cycles to get the rest of the achievements. There are a total of 9 of them, and they are all related to or dependent on launching rockets into space. Ron has been hard at work and found all the planets except for the last one. That one's queued up now, so next time will be a race against time to see if we can get all the achievements and beat the game in under 1000 cycles. If you made it this far in the video, thank you for joining me on this journey. If you aren't subscribed, at least consider it so you don't miss the conclusion to the series. And here's a sneak peek of what's to come and the epic conclusion to our 1000 day journey. How did May get in this 1x2 square? Rocket is taking off with the awesome animation once again. Pieces falling off as it goes, but that's alright. This is our statue, this is our message. And with no fear at all, enter the rocket. We knew this was gonna happen, but now that we're actually here, it's a little bit difficult. It's something we have to do.